Hello and welcome to the channel. If you're new here, this is my space for exploring concepts of arts and creativity and how they connect back to basic psychology and mental health and wellness, because I find that the two intersect in really fun and fascinating ways. Today we're getting into the concept of what it is to be open-minded, both in new ways of thinking and in being open to new life experiences. How this can help us to live life to the fullest and live a life that's really interesting and diverse. This video is part of a little series I've done on habits of highly creative thinkers. Being open-minded is one of the habits, so if you're particularly interested in that list, you can check it out here. Otherwise, stick around, we're gonna get into it. In this video, I'm going to go through some of the many benefits that have been linked back to having a deliberately open-minded approach to life, and then how we can go about developing this way of thinking and living a little bit more in our own lives. As mentioned before, one of the clear benefits of deliberately trying to be more open-minded is that it increases our ability to be more creative. And this makes sense because you're inherently approaching life with more curiosity. If you're always exploring, trying to understand new things, it gives you more material for creating your own new ideas and connecting concepts. It's also linked to an increase in IQ, which makes sense because you're gaining new knowledge all the time through your new experiences. And people who try to develop this sense of being more open-minded are also found to deliberately seek out more cognitive stimulus. So they like to be challenged, they like to be active and keep their minds going. So it makes sense that they're developing their creativity, growing their IQ, becoming more intelligent, kind of rounded people overall. Another interesting one is that it has been found to increase resilience, like emotionally and mentally, and this makes a lot of sense. If we think of our minds and our emotions together almost like a muscle, then you can kind of deliberately stretch it a little bit every day. You're making yourself more flexible. If you have a really rigid, clear mindset where everything fits into a tidy box, as soon as something in your life happens that doesn't fit into the box, it will cause a great deal of stress and upheaval. If you have this kind of mental elasticity going on, you've been practicing accepting new ideas and kind of opening your mind a little bit intentionally, then when surprising, difficult things happen, you'll have a little bit of an easier time, like kind of catching it and seeing what's going on. It can help people then in dealing with crises and tragedies. They're a little more likely to have room in their understanding of the world to accept what's happening to them. So a little more tolerant of ambiguity and able to accept things that don't normally fit into the boxes we would otherwise put them in. So that's very interesting. Being open-minded can give you a little bit more resilience and a little more ability to handle the different things that will come at you during your life. It's also been found to lead to personal growth. If you have a habit of being open to new ideas and ways of thinking, then you're constantly taking in information, evaluating it against what you already know about yourself and the way you live your life. And when you find a way of doing things or thinking that seems better than your own, you can adapt and you can change. So it naturally leads to a lot of growth, as opposed to sitting with what you already have that you think is the best and never evaluating it and never changing it. So if you're open to taking in new ideas and ways of thinking, it will help you grow much more as a person. It's also been found to lead to more authenticity. If you're used to accepting that your ideas are not always the best, then it increases basic humility. You're more used to being sincere in front of people because you don't have as much to guard or protect. You're kind of open to what the world has to offer you. You can be a little more open-handed. It's kind of how I like to think of it, as opposed to like kind of closed and guarded, a little more free to be yourself in front of new people and new experiences. So it increases authenticity as well. Being open-minded has also been linked to having deeper emotional experiences and being a little more in tune with one's own emotions. Anytime we're faced with a challenge, we're then left with some work afterwards of kind of understanding how we feel about it. We have to take time to understand our emotions and process what has happened to us. At least that's the healthy approach. That's what we need to do in order to be healthy people. So if you're constantly challenging yourself a little bit, it stands to reason that as long as you're doing this healthfully, you are also processing your emotions and your experience on a regular basis. As opposed to if you're in your very comfortable daily life and your same routine and nothing changes, you're not giving yourself work every day. You don't necessarily have anything to process because yesterday was the same as today. So you're giving yourself a little bit of extra work to do for yourself, and that leads to a habit of better processing your emotions and getting more in tune with what's going on internally for you as a person. And if you're open to new experiences, you're going to have more time to like appreciate beauty and feel awe and get this sense of being connected to something greater than yourself because you're seeking out that kind of experience. So it also leads to people having kind of a deeper emotional connection to things simply because they're learning more and they're expanding their horizons and they're finding how much there is in the world that's like good and beautiful and what there is to really experience. It has also been linked to an increase in absorption and flow. So we talk about what it is to be in a flow state for your work where you're just really dialed into what's right in front of you. You're not distracted. You're not going off and doing other things in the middle. And this is a really great attribute that people want in their work all the time, and hopefully in most areas of our lives. And it shows an increase in that. You get a little bit better at being really, really present and just staying in the moment. I have another video here that just digs into that concept. What is it to be really mindful and stay where we are, and how can we do that better? And one of the ways we can do that better is by being open-minded and exploring the world around us and taking everything that we're given right as it's happening and not dwelling on the future or the past, but just staying right where we are, not being super distracted, but really getting into a flow state and deeply experiencing what is happening to us in the moment. And finally, this is a long list, but finally, it also helps us to grow in self-confidence. Again, you're challenging yourself over and over again and finding that you can navigate these challenges. You will grow more confident in your abilities to navigate the world, to take on new challenges, to see what's going on around you and not be afraid of it. You're building that kind of mental flexibility. You know that you'll be able to take in new ideas and new perspectives and not be taken down by them, but just grow from them instead. Okay, so now that we've gone through a long list of all the benefits that can be had from being open-minded and seeking out new experiences intentionally, how do we actually do it? So first off, to a certain extent, some of it will be naturally in your personality. Some people are very, very open to new experiences. They like crave them, and this is just who they are as people. You probably have, at least one person who's always getting a strange food at a restaurant or always telling you about this trip they went on or how they went bungee jumping, right? Maybe they're a thrill seeker too. And it's just kind of who they are as a person. For other people, they're just more inclined to like really gravitate towards tradition. They love rules. I love rules. It's almost like a problem. I find such satisfaction in organizing things and knowing where everything is and really keeping things in their place. And I find myself doing that in a lot of areas in my life, just very naturally. It's so satisfying. So for me, I put a little more effort into it, like consciously being like, oh my gosh, you gotta like push past some of these boundaries. So for those of us who are less naturally inclined or just interested in learning to get better at it, how do we do it? First off, there are some basic like habits or new ways of just approaching activities that can naturally help with this. And the basic rule is that it is anything that will push you outside your comfort zone. So that could be learning a new skill or hobby. Maybe you want to learn photography or take up a cooking course or try dancing. Not surprisingly, especially for this channel, I would encourage you to look into something creative because that even more so is really increasing that kind of mental elasticity and flexibility. If you want to try learning how to sketch or paint or play guitar, all of these are just really going to kind of push your mind and help you grow in that way. But any new skill, so you can learn something new, travel. I mean, it's a given. Anytime we're traveling and we're going and we're immersing in a new culture, we're really going to take in a lot, especially if you're trying to. There's so much to be gained from traveling and just diving right into the middle of an entire group of people who does things very differently from you. You can also, in a smaller way, just deliberately talk to someone you wouldn't normally. And that's a little risky because, again, we don't want to be rejected. That's another topic. But if you open yourself up to a new group of people, or even a small encounter on the subway, maybe, talk to that person who doesn't look like your type of person, We all make snap judgments about people, and there's reasons for that. It helps us survive and navigate the world. But again, if you're trying to push those boundaries, maybe you just want to have a conversation with a stranger. Just be open to who they are and what they have to tell you. You could also ask someone's opinion when you are pretty sure they will disagree with you. You don't have to agree with them, but just to listen to what another person has to say. Most of us want to talk to people who agree with us. It's easy, it's safe, we like it, we understand what's going to come our way. So maybe if you have somebody in the office or an acquaintance or a friend who you know really disagrees with you on a certain topic, maybe you just want to ask them about it and just hear what they have. Just tell them you're curious to hear their opinions. People love sharing their opinions. You won't have a hard time. You probably won't have a hard time getting them to talk to you. Another very simple one is just to change your daily routine somehow. And routines are not a bad thing. They help us to be really productive, and we can only change so many things about our life at a time, usually, if we're going to maintain sanity. You don't want to upend everything at once, but maybe if you eat the same food for lunch every day, shake it up. Maybe you want to wake up at a different time or change the way you do your hair. That's risky. I wouldn't do that one. But yeah, maybe you want to change something about your daily routine. That can work as well. So these are some basic, like, practical daily things we can literally do. But of course, it comes down most of all to mindset. It's all about how you approach it. So the goal in any of these things that we do has to be about our own growth. And that's where the change will come from. If we're going to stay in a fancy resort and not actually go out and mingle with the locals, we're not really going to be expanding our horizons. We're not going to be growing in that way. And that's okay. There's no reason you can't go to a resort, but just know that that kind of doesn't count, right? You have to be trying to push yourself. This is the hardest thing. We need to always be looking in whatever we're learning or experiencing that's new. We must be looking for what is worthwhile in it. Especially if you're trying to look into something that you know you disagree with. That's the most important thing. So if you're having a conversation with someone who disagrees with you, the reason we don't like to do this is because we've already written off all of the ways that they think. And it's hard to let someone tell you their opinion and really try to find the value in it. It's so satisfying. It is so deeply satisfying to remind ourselves of why our own way of thinking and doing things is the best. I love it. I do it a lot. It doesn't help me to be more open-minded. But we do this all the time, whether we mean to or not. We'll have a way of doing the dishes, and someone else will be visiting, and they'll load the dishwasher, and we'll be like, it's not as good as my way, right? Like tiny things. Or you'll be listening to someone else have a conversation and you're like, wow, I can't believe they think that. That's so stupid. Most of us tend to be a little bit judgmental, or even if we're not criticizing other people, sometimes we're just congratulating ourselves on what it is that we already do that's really great. I mean, I do this all the time, and there's nothing wrong with appreciating what we've accomplished or acknowledging what we have that works really well. These are good things. But when that's all we do and we stay with the same group of people and we keep just kind of feeling good about our own ideas and opinions and ways of living, we'll never grow and we'll never change. We have to try. We have to try and see what's good about the way other people do things. So that's really the key. If you're going to ask someone's opinion, try to listen really hard and just see if there's something of value there. Like, push yourself. The whole goal is to push yourself internally. And then if you've really tried and you're really like open-minded as you're talking to them, you can conclude afterwards that you don't actually like anything they've said. And then you can be a little bit stronger and a little more affirmed in the opinions you had before, because at least you took the risk. At least you challenged them. A lot of us never challenge our own opinions because we're afraid we'll find out we're wrong and then we'll have to change, and that's kind of a bummer. But if you're open to changing to start off with, it's much easier. You'll be flexible, you'll be able to take in these new ideas. You won't be threatened by things that are different. And that's kind of that concept I touched on before about being a little more resilient. You won't be threatened because you know you can handle it. If their idea is better than yours, you can adopt it. And it'll be okay. It'll be good. It'll be better than it was before. That's really it. We can do things in our daily routine and in our habits to deliberately try to be open-minded, but at the end of the day, it's all about mindset and how we approach it and whether or not we decide that we want to push ourselves and accept the idea that someone might have something better than we do, and be okay with that and be excited about that rather than being threatened. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you found this helpful. I really enjoyed talking about it. I really love to hear what other people think and what their experiences are. So if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and drop those below. Subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you next time.